is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
My job and assistant's jobs are to lay out the options, and your head coach should want your opinion. Just lay out the options and then be able to deliver like, hey, I think this is the best one, and then leave it at that. You got to put your ego to the side.
Patrick McGrail is in his second season as a men's basketball assistant coach at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. McGrail joined WashU after holding the positions of assistant coach and most recently associate head coach at Rhodes College from 2018 to 2024. That was his second stint at Rhodes, as he was also an assistant for 2 years from 2013 to 2015. Between his stints at Rhodes, McGrail served as the athletic coordinator at his alma mater of Fenwick High School in Northern Illinois and was the assistant varsity basketball coach, helping to guide the team to the 2017 state championship game. McGrail played his college basketball at Rhodes, where he was the 2013-2014 Southern Athletic Association Defensive Player of the Year, and finished his career in the SAA record books with a top three-point percentage of 47.8. Hey, hoopheads, when a player becomes unguardable, the game shifts, the defense breaks, the crowd roars, and your team takes control. Great players don't just get lucky, they stoke the fire within. They're built in practice, accelerated with the right reps, the right motivation, and the number one selling shooting machine in America, Dr. Dish. Feed your fire. Follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Those are some great deals, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hey, this is Russ Bradford, author of the new satirical novel Big Time, and you're listening to the Hoopheads podcast.
Coaches, you've got a game plan for your team, but do you have one for your money? That's where Wealth for Coaches comes in. Each week, we'll deliver simple, no-fluff financial tips made just for coaches. Whether you're getting paid for camps, training sessions, or a full season, Wealth for Coaches helps you track it, save it, and grow it. It's time to stop guessing and start building. Subscribe now at wealthforcoaches.beehive.com/subscribe and follow us on Twitter at Wealth for Coaches for daily money wins. Your money needs a coach. Start with Wealth for Coaches. You'll want to take some notes as you listen to this episode with Patrick McGrail, men's basketball assistant coach at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here without my co-host Jason Sunkel this morning, but I am pleased to be joined by Patrick McGrail, men's basketball assistant coach at WashU. Patrick, welcome to the Hoopheads pod.
Mike, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and excited to talk a little bit about my career, but more so just talk hoops, and
Absolutely.
And
Looking forward to it. And I know that you've had a lot of experience in your career, both as a player and as a coach. I think a lot of the things that are going to be relatable for our audience. I want to start by going back in time to when you were a kid. Tell me about growing up, your first experiences with the game of basketball. What made you fall in love with it?
Yeah, that's actually something I haven't thought about in a while. Is like the true origin of when you fall in love with the game. And the first thing I think about being a kid in the suburbs of Chicago, I was born in the 90s, so didn't see, I don't have vivid memories of those 90s Bulls, but all the championship VHSs at the time, and those, filled the household, were always playing. And that's where I just became obsessed, was watching all of those, all the Air Jordan, those videos. I think Michael Jordan's Playground. I don't know if that resonates with anybody that's going to listen to this, and just all of the highlights and the way that the storytelling of those videos, and then it's stuff that you can't script in Hollywood, like that whole era of basketball, and that's I found myself watching those constantly, replicating those moments, those moves. And playing in every driveway, whether it be my own or family members, and kind of that's where I knew that I loved the game, and I wanted to I wanted to work at it. I love playing other sports. I played, football, baseball, soccer, just like most people. And, but basketball was the one that, I always had a drive to continue to pursue and want to be good at it. And I wasn't good at it. I think that was part of it too, right? You'd you're usually drawn to the stuff that frustrates you and you want to keep chipping away at. And, but those 90s bowls and then, I think like a lot of coaches, I remember I lived in Chicago for a good bit of my childhood, and I also lived in Northern California. And XL basketball camp run by Frank Alaco out there in the Bay Area. That's where I learned to play. Like that's where I learned the fundamentals of shooting, where I actually took something from a camp and did it all summer long and saw improvement and got that taste of success and be like, oh, maybe I can do this. And that just, kind of sparked the continued progress and the continued drive to play in high school. And luckily enough found a college that I could play at. So that's kind of a brief little background, I guess.
You could never go wrong with having Michael Jordan as your inspiration. Let's put it that way. I know that I'm a little bit old. I'm a little bit older than you. So my first Jordan memory is the most vivid one is the shot against Georgetown in the NCAA tournament. And from that point on, you fall in love with just, again, everything about the guy from, you talk about trying to do things or seeing somebody that you're like, I'm never going to be able to do that. And just as a ground bound, slow 6'3" white guy who could shoot a little bit, the idea of trying to ever imagine that I could emulate Michael Jordan, that's a way far out there type of goal that was not realistic in any way, shape, or form for me. But to the same degree that Michael Jordan inspired you, I grew up born in 1970. So as Jordan is coming up, I'm right in the, my middle school, high school peak years of being a basketball fan. And there's nothing better going back and watching the doc, watching The Last Dance and reliving that. When that thing ended, I was like, what? There's got to be more of this. Like I could just sit and watch this for hours and hours and hours and hours and feel like the time hadn't passed at all. So I can certainly relate to your love of Michael Jordan and how that got you started in the game. And, and then obviously from a basketball camp standpoint, things are a little bit different now in terms of how basketball is played at the youth level, and the camps, they're still around, but certainly probably not as prevalent in terms of kids attending them in the same way. Everybody wants to play, right? Everybody wants to be on a team now when you're in third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade and play, as opposed to necessarily working on your skill development and those old school camps and that kind of stuff. So as you think about yourself and your development, and obviously, as you said, going to camp kind of inspired you like, hey, maybe I can do this, as you learn from good coaches and you get that kind of exposure. As you started to take the game more seriously and it became your number one sport, how'd you go about getting better? What was your process for becoming a better player? Would you say you had an organized plan, or were you kind of just like, hey, haphazard, I get in the gym and I get shots up, I try to find games? I don't know if either one of those better describes sort of your path to becoming a good player.
Yeah. The biggest, when I was getting into, probably the more serious stages for me probably started 7th, 8th grade and on. And I remember playing, when you're in your junior high, there wasn't it was like the beginning stages of like the trainer, like kind of era, and like very beginning stages. And it was more so, and AAU was pretty, it was relevant and it was prevalent in the area, but it was kind of more taboo. Like it was kind of a little taboo for some high school coaches. Like, I remember, some coaches would be like, no, you're not playing AAU. Like if you play AAU, like that's not really something that we want you to do. And we want you to go to our summer camp, or we want you to play on our, high school summer, like kind of conglomerate of kids that are going to go to the same high school and play in a summer league, and kind of build up, you're getting ready for high school. You're not getting ready for the exposure that AAU would bring. And so for me, it was more, I played as much as I could with my friends. Like I had in 8th grade and in 9th grade, when I did, and really in 8th, when I was on a like quote unquote AAU team, like those coaches, we would do individual stuff, but it wasn't like, hey, I got this separate trainer on the side who gave me an organized routine. It's like, hey, come in, like kind of like a college setup of like, hey, come in 30 minutes before practice and let's work on your shot and let's work on your handle. And then, we're going to practice for the next couple hours. So, so it was very like minimal organized training. It was really, I became obsessed with just form shooting, probably a little bit too much to the detriment of my ball handling. But I just, I would go out and I would pick spots and do my form shooting. Every time I was on the court, I would form shoot and then I would, hit the 5 spots and get as many shots up as I could there. And then just replicate whatever I saw on the videos that I just mentioned with Michael Jordan and guys that I probably shouldn't have been replicating. And then, eventually it was the JJ Redicks that were pretty more comparable. And then when I got into high school, like that's when you have access to, and then like, the shooting gun became like my best friend. Like that was, as organized as I probably got was, hey, we're going to get a certain number of reps on the shooting gun. And then I'm going to get with, if there are teammates there, like we'll get together and we'll play 1s, we'll play 2s, we'll play 3s. But, if anybody else, that was probably something that I wish I'd like looking at what I tell our players now is we hey, come in and do stuff together. I wish I was more of like hey, let's have some ideas and like, work on some skills. But it was really just more organic play. And it was just kind of like, let's go compete and do it that way. But yeah, I wouldn't say without like, I had a pretty organized shooting routine, but other than that, I was, everything else came with the coaches, right? Whatever I was being coached wherever I was at. And then, the occasional kind of one-off, training experiences that I had, either with, and it became more like my junior and senior year of high school. I remember my senior year, I went and started, working with a trainer pretty regularly, and had that routine. But the majority of those early years were just on my own and trusting high school coaches and club coaches and going from there and working on what I felt like I had to work on.
I almost feel like today that for players, if you're trying to do things on your own, right, it's almost overwhelming when you go on and look and you're like, hey, I want to come up with a new shooting drill. And you go on and you can find 6 billion shooting drills on whether you're on YouTube or you're on Twitter. It's almost overwhelming. It's overwhelming as a coach, as an adult, to try to look at that stuff. I can only imagine for like a 12-year-old kid who says to himself, hey, I really want to get better. And let me find some drills that I can work on. You go and you search and you're like, whoa, holy cow. There's like a million different things that you can find and try to sort out like, hey, what should I be doing? What's real and what's imagined? So yeah, I think people come to it, when you start talking about how do you improve your game, everybody kind of has a different path to what works. And ultimately, the more you have the ball in your hands and the more you're doing things, you can be super organized over here. You could be more haphazard over here and playing pickup and doing things. And if you got the ball in your hands, there's a good chance you're going to improve and get better and move in the direction that you want to go. So when you think about yourself as a high school player, what's your favorite memory that sticks out for you from playing high school basketball?
Favorite memory. One pops to mind, but it's got a bad end. So I transferred school. So I started my high school career at De La Salle High School in Concord, California. So I was there freshman, sophomore year. And then my family, we ended up moving back to the Chicagoland area for my junior year. So I finished high school at Fenwick High School. And so I was at Fenwick, I was the new kid. And that's kind of where I felt like we had we had shooting guns at Dale. We had a ton of shooting guns at De La Salle. We were all about it there. And then I just remember coming in and to Fenwick, and I was like, it was the first practice. I didn't know anybody. I pull out the shooting gun. I put it to set it up, and guys were like, "Oh, we never no one's really ever used it before." And I was like, "This is all I know how to do." And so that was like my starting point there, and that was kind of a fun memory because I got guys came over. We started doing stuff together. I was like, all right, I'm I fit in a little bit with these guys.
Right.
But my junior year, I hadn't done anything I'm trying to just come off the bench and make a mark, and we were playing our crosstown rival OPRF, and I hadn't played the whole game. I think maybe like a little bit in the first half, and then I come in. We're down 3. I come in for the last. There's like 6 seconds left, and we got to go the length of the court, and they stick me in a corner, and I'm waiting there, and our point guard gets loose, gets downhill, finds me, hit the 3 to tie the game, and I was like, all right, I'm like people you get your ego boost of, hey, I had a moment at my new school, and it was really exciting. We ended up losing in overtime, which sucks, but that was you have some credibility, you feel some credibility to the work that you put in, and then you got guys texting you after the game being like, hey, that was that's a big time shot, you're gonna stick with it, you're gonna keep contributing to our unit, and you feel pulled in. So that was a definitely feel good moment. And another really cool moment as well was playing, we played that same year, my junior year, we played at Farragut High School, which is where Kevin Garnett went to high school, and they got the big Garnett mural in the gym, and it's a old downtown Chicago setting, and it was intense environment. It's a state, it's a regional semifinal game, and just a big time win. One of our Mike Black, who played at Albany, he's a coach at assistant coach at Bradley right now, and he had one of the more impressive moments that I've seen live of and just it's just cool, as a coach, you're watching those moments more than you're being a part of them, but just thinking back about those moments as a player of appreciating what you're part of some awesome moments in your high school that other people had, games that they're still talking about. And same with the Proviso West tournament was, it's unfortunately is kind of dissipated here and recently, but that was, the premier holiday tournament in Illinois. And my team, Xavier Humphrey, went on, played at Winona State. He had 30, maybe 39 against, he played for the Sixers. He's escaping my head, but it'll come to me after the podcast, of course. But
of course,
we're playing against the Proviso West, and it's Saturday night, primetime game, and just being a part of those big moments, in high school, and there's nothing like it because the energy of, Fenwick. We had a great alumni base. We had really, really great student support, and they know when the big games are, and you feel that as a player, and to be a part of moments where you can deliver and your teammates deliver was, it gives you goosebumps like thinking about it. But yeah, those are some good times for sure.
Those are some good ones. There's nothing like high school basketball when you have a great crowd and it's a meaningful game, whether that's a conference game, whether it's a state tournament game. There just is nothing like it as a player. And then I was fortunate enough, I was an assistant varsity coach at the beginning of my teaching career for 12, 13 years and had an opportunity to coach in some of those environments. And it just feels different when you have a big crowd in a high school game, as both a player and a coach. There's nothing like that. The school spirit side of it, the camaraderie amongst the players, it really does provide some special moments, and obviously it sounds like it did for you. Tell me about the process for getting to Rhodes. What does it look like for you making that decision? When did you know that you wanted to play? Was playing college basketball always a dream? And then how'd you make it a reality and then end up making that decision to go to Rhodes?
Yeah. So I had a far better college career than high school career. So the navigating, where, if that was going to be reality at all, was a little challenging. And so I wasn't, I was not heavily recruited out of high school. I really had to go out and be proactive. And so it was, back then it was, can you find somebody to make a DVD? Like my mom, I remember me and my mom, like we were, we had to, pay a guy to make a highlight tape and then you got to mail it. You got to like physically mail it. There's and so I know I feel like, I don't feel like I'm that old, but like if I feel really old right now, but, and so I remember mailing it to, and my college or my high school, we had a college counselor at our high school, and so I sat down with him and I knew I wanted to play college basketball. I wanted to continue, that was the dream. But I knew I wasn't, I was luckily like self-aware that, 5'10" shooting guard isn't getting a scholarship to, I'm not Duke and, Marquette, right? And all those, those are, I knew where I stood. And so, and I always I wanted to go to a small school. I wasn't really, I didn't have a desire to go to a large state school. So he sat down, he gave me a list of liberal arts colleges, stuff that fit what I was looking for. And Rhodes happened to be on that list. So I sent the DVDs out to those institutions. I was the I was the annoying recruit that was like, "Hey coach, I'm going to, DePaul, I'm going to come to campus and I'm going to check out the campus. And if the coaches are around, like would love to meet you guys." And, I get the third assistant and he shows me around and that was that. And so, but Rhodes, the assistant there, Thad Phillips, shout out Thad. And he was the head coach at, I never know how to pronounce it, Kuka College or the New York school. But he was the assistant at the time and he reached out, he called me every Sunday and was really interested. And that was the only school I visited. I went on a DePaul visit basically on my own. I went up to St. Norbert's, and saw a game against Grinnell. That was a riveting experience of that style of play. And
for sure.
And went to a couple others. Yeah, that was not expecting that, and had no idea about Grinnell.
No idea what you were walking into there.
No idea. Me and my dad walked in. It was a frigid, December day. We had an off day in high school. I was like, let's go check out a Norbert's game, and Grinnell's got one guy at half court waiting to play offense. But yeah, and so I went down to Rhodes and I went for a visit and played pickup with the guys, met with the assistant and And I knew I wanted to go away for school. I didn't want to stay close to home. I wanted to experience a different part of the country, or just, be a little bit further away. And so the South was appealing. And then after leaving, I was like, that place is, if you got a gut feeling. And it was an interesting case too. So at the time, the Herb Hilgelman, he was 34-year legendary head coach at Rhodes. He had retired, and going into right after that's my senior year of high school,
right?
Going into my freshman year. So Thad was, he was, putting himself in a position to potentially get that job, and then so still recruiting and doing all that, and he ended up not going to school that I mentioned, and so I was in a interesting spot. I got a call from Andrew Gallo, who was the stud sophomore on the team, and he's like, hey, we're gonna be going through this hiring process. I'll keep you up to date. And so because May 1, I was like, I'm going to Rhodes. I'm gonna figure it out. That was kind of my plan. It's I love the school. I love the guys, and I think, I was like, I think I can play here. That was I think I got a chance to, if I work hard, and I think I had a chance to figure it out there. And so I didn't know who my head coach was going to be. And he gives me a call when they're done with the search, and it was he's like, oh, Mike DeGeorge is going to be our head coach. And I was like, I don't know who that is, but it sounds good. I'll see you in August. And
let's do it.
And so let's do it. Great. And so, and yeah, that's how I ended up there, and had an unbelievable experience. I loved it there.
How much did you know about D3 basketball before you started the process of looking at schools? Had you seen many D3 games? What was your level of knowledge, would you say, of D3 basketball as a high school junior?
Oh gosh, as a high school junior, probably extremely minimal. I'd never been to a Division III game. I knew my dad went to Rockford College, so they weren't D3 at the time. They were NAIA when he went to school there, but they had transitioned to Division III. So I was I knew that, but I didn't know really any until my counselor said, hey, these are small colleges that have that you can go play at. I really had no real sense of it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and you are far, as I'm sure you well know, you were far from unusual, especially at the time when you're kind of trying to make those decisions, right? I mean, clearly with the internet explosion and YouTube and stuff, I'm sure kids today are at least a little bit more familiar with Division III basketball when you're recruiting them and talking to them now. But I think back to when you were being recruited, or go back a long time ago to when I was being recruited, and nobody knew anything about, I've talked to a number of coaches that they're like, yeah, we talk to kids, and they're like, yeah, we've never even seen a Division III game, let alone thinking about, hey, these are places that I might actually consider going to school and playing basketball. So obviously you had a really nice career at Rhodes. What were you thinking about academically as you got into school? And at that point, was coaching at all on your radar here during your playing career, or were you still just kind of focused on being a player?
No, coaching was on the radar. Probably my junior year of high school, I knew I wanted to be a coach. That was the first time I probably verbalized it to somebody else. My head coach at the time, I was like, I want to, but my plan was I wanted to, be the classic, teach history and be a high school basketball coach. And that was kind of what that was my goal at the time. And so when I went into school, I was thinking political science and history, and that's where I sort of started my path. And then I actually ended up, I ended up just having a curiosity about psychology, and I didn't take any psychology courses in high school. I went to a lecture going into I heard the head of the department at Rhodes. I heard her speak at one of our freshman orientation things, and I was like, oh, this seems like something that I would like to, sort of check out and pursue. And I actually ended up not taking psych until second semester my freshman year. And it was like, this is it's different. I was like, I don't really, if this is intriguing enough, I was like, I feel like I don't have to be a history teacher and a basketball coach. Like, I might as well just pursue something that, interests me. It seems like psychology kind of makes sense for coaching and trying to figure out what's going in my players' heads and how to motivate them, figure out what's going on in my head and sort of go on, like kind of go from there, figure out how to motivate people and it felt like it sort of fit. And so that's what I ended up majoring in that department. So and we talk about it in recruiting all the time, just like that's what college is kind of all about. And we might be, might be biased because that's kind of our path of like, hey, you don't have to have it all figured out. Like you can, it's you have a great opportunity to pursue, like for me, pursuing psych was, not in the cards in high school, but, you go to, you go to a university or college, you have way more access to a lot of different avenues. And so kind of happy it turned out that way because I like telling that story. I like that, you don't have to, in a world of, hasn't changed. There's plenty of, when we were going to school, there's the group that has it all figured out. They got the plan down to the second and you don't have to, put that much pressure on yourself, right? You can,
it's true.
You got time, you got time and you got a short period of time, but you got, you need to experience different things and figure out, you don't want to miss out on anything. And so I'm glad I like talking to families and players about that because, I think it resonates with the parents. I think the parents, they feel that, but the kids, you don't have to. It's okay. Like it's okay to not just, be like have the next 40 years figured out. Like
exactly. The line I always like to use. I use it on my own kids, and I use it to use it with other families and kids. I'm always like, look, I'm 55 years old and now I can add a line that I just retired and I still don't know what I want to do with my life. So it's, you certainly, I certainly didn't have it figured out at 18 and I barely feel like I have it figured out at 55. So yeah, I do think that the ability to be young and to be able to have different directions that you can go and give yourself options and be able to take a course here, take a course there and see different things and see different perspectives and then see, hey, where do my interests lie? You got a lot of developing to do from age 18 to age 22 or 23. And there are some people that are in that cohort that you talked about that I want to be a doctor, or I want to be whatever it is. And I think those people are fewer and further between now probably than it's ever been. I think it's just, there's so many different avenues out there with the world and kids, because of the access that they have to information, certainly compared to when I was in high school, they're just way more aware of all those different paths that you can take in order to get where you want to go. So as you're playing, are you having conversations with your coaching staff about, hey, when I graduate, I really want to get into coaching? And are you starting to talk to them about what the career looks like, what it would take, building your network? Obviously, I know you end up back at Rhodes after you graduate, but just talk a little bit about your relationship with your college coaching staff and how that helped you not only just to get back on the staff when you graduate at Rhodes, but then also just moving forward in your coaching career.
Yeah. I I voiced that I did want to, like, Mike knew that I wanted to be a coach, and I really didn't have I talked more with him about, as I was going to, like, sophomore, junior year, about like teaching, like what, like teaching opportunities that could have, potential coaching opportunities. And so, like, certain programming that would make sense. I know there was, like, a prep school that I was looking at and trying to connect with their people and network with them as, potential landing spots after graduation. But for the most part, I didn't get into much of the networking. I kind of just made sure that I was around basketball people outside of the school year. And so, I would always go home and work Fenwick camp and, build relationships there. And then, I was working, I trained with, that's kind of my college years is when I really started to, like, specifically be organized and train with somebody, and had trained with Matt Miller, who now is the founder and CEO of M14 Hoops in Aurora, Illinois. And so I would work with him. I would work his camps as well. And so that was kind of my foundation of, one, like, figuring out, like, starting to coach, like, you're coaching and doing drill work in those camps, and then just being connected to those people and saying, hey, like, when I'm done playing, I want to stay in basketball. And so that was kind of my mindset. And then I ended up, after my senior year playing, I got on with like a local AAU team and was coaching one of their younger teams as well, and just trying to stay involved and start to build that part of my skill set moving forward as I was becoming closer to being a coach. But I always had, like, I still always had that mindset of finding a high school spot. And then it kind of changed my senior, as it got closer to graduation, it was starting to get more and more real. I didn't know where I was going to end up. And I really thought I was going to end up at M14. So M14 started to grow, and then he was going to have opportunities to be a trainer. And then they didn't have teams at the time, but just, I was like, all right, worst comes to worst, if I can't find a high school job, like, I'm going to go and work for him and be a trainer and work at that. And I'll kind of figure out what the next steps are after that. And I just got lucky. Like, I knew, like, I had enough trust with Mike and the staff, and one of the part-time guy who was there my senior year, he was getting out of coaching. He was moving. And so he came to me just randomly one day. He said, hey, I think we're going to have a position open. And if I know you want to get into coaching, like, if you want it, like, it's yours. And I had never, like, thought of myself as a college coach. And I was like,
right. Yeah.
I was like, I can't say no to that. Right. Like, I loved the school. Mike is, awesome. Like, just the best. And I was like, yeah, like, I'm in, I'm sold. Like, you don't have to say anything else. And so, that's how I got my start. And it was just right after graduation, found a place in Memphis, and then we were rolling from there.
So once you take that job, obviously it's a change, right? Because you had kind of been mentally preparing yourself for, I'm going to be a teacher, which is going to be my main profession. And then I'm going to be a high school coach. And you could probably flip-flop those. I'm sure there's some high school coaches that would flip-flop the coaching and the teaching, but teaching is going to take up a bulk of your time and your career in that way. And then all of a sudden, boom, now it's flipped and you're a college coach. So the teaching position, the day-to-day of teaching kind of goes out the window. And now I know you're not all basketball all day because there's a lot of different things that you have to do in coaching that aren't involving coaching basketball, but you now become a full-time basketball coach. What did you love about it right from the start? Like, how did you know after a month on the job that you were like, I found my home in coaching. I found what I want to do.
The first project Mike gave me was basically doing a skills breakdown, like of what to give to the guys, hey, this is what you should be doing this summer to help you. And our level is so different, like we can't get on the floor. That's what probably frustrates me the most is like, because I love that component of, hey, like I want to be on the floor one-on-one or small group and like, and help guys, improve and build confidence. And so, but like that, like just the accomplishment I felt from, videoing, putting together like a little video series of, hey, this is like the progression of skill development or player development that we need you to do, like, and how it fits into, what we do offensively. I was like, this is fun. Like I could do this all day. And even though it wasn't on the floor, but it was just like, hey, that same component of we're helping the guys, like giving them something to do in the summer and then like the application, like the translation to, why we're doing this, why these things are important and, see how you guys did it in a game, the year before. And now the new guys are coming in, they're seeing like, okay, this is what we're about. And like just the sense of accomplishment of like getting like a project like that done. That was like when I knew like, okay, this isn't work, like it's work, but it's not like this is
right.
This is not, I don't know, a chemistry project or something.
Right.
But,
I got exactly.
Yeah. and just like being like I love being an assistant coach, and I've been lucky to be Rhodes. We had great guys, and like relating to them. It was easy for me. Like I was just like a really like comfort zone of, they could come to me and like I knew everything they were talking about. Like I knew everything from the classes they were taking to their daily schedules to what they're doing on the weekends, and like that was the hardest part. Is like I got to separate myself now. I got to be
like 6 months ago. That's what I was doing. That's what I was doing. I was doing the exact same thing. So yeah, I get it.
But that like relatability and like them being able to and then me to just be like I had so much pride in the program. Like it was so easy it was a really easy transition. And so yeah, but I mean, in that first, like, there's nothing like, you got to get over, like, the first time you're playing, Sewanee was our big rival. So, like, the first time you're not playing in that game, it's like, it hits you a little bit, but, the juices get flowing. And as a coach, and you're like, there is something a little bit extra about, hey, like, you get that feeling of, like, I'm still in this, I'm still like, I'm graduated. All my teammates, everybody else, they're, working jobs and, or, I was sitting in front of a computer screen, but I get to watch basketball. Like they're, doing, spreadsheets and all that stuff. And like, I'm, spending Fridays and Sundays, like in the gyms that we used to compete in. And like, and I get to still compete in those gyms. And so, yeah, that's it was an easy sell for me.
Was there anything surprising when, I always think it's interesting, guys who go from their playing career to being a coach on the staff, where you're making that transition. Obviously, you kind of address the idea of, hey, it was easily to relate to the guys because you had just been in their shoes, 6 months earlier. But when you step behind that curtain, was there anything that you were surprised, like, hey, I didn't realize these guys spent so much time doing this, or wow, I didn't even know that they did that? Or was there just, what was surprising to you that maybe you didn't realize as a player that once you got behind the curtain with your, with your coaching staff that surprised you?
Yeah, I think the amount of like detailed film work, because as a player, and that can get like a little bit, I think a little bit monotonous, and like you're sitting there, you're like, like we're like, and it's a little, it's just different from a player's perspective.
Yeah,
you're anticipating,
right, for sure.
Oh man, when's that next play coming up, and when's like, coaches, he's picking on me, and so but from a coaching lens, like it's completely different. Like the amount of work that goes into, pulling clips and what you show and what themes you're going to have. And you don't think about any, like, you're not thinking about the other stuff that the players are thinking about. Like, you're not like, we're not picking on anybody. We're just, we're pulling out, certain things, but the amount that went into, and especially the scouts, like the amount that went into what we, the limited, amount of time that's spent showing it to the team, like how much goes into that. But I kind of, I guess like it was a little surprising, but you kind of expect, like you want to get the coach and you're like, oh, we're, grinding film all the time. And you have that, kind of stereotype. The biggest thing, and probably the biggest adjustment for me, was I didn't realize how much went into recruiting, like the amount of, like, and at Rhodes, we were, we were volume recruiting. Like, so you're sending like a ton of mailings over a extended period of time. And I remember like looking back at, they had saved stuff that our coaches did while I was playing. I was like, man, these guys are doing a lot of like, being creative and just the amount of like tracking of, hey, they go to like one open gym and like the notes of, the next class and the next class. I was like, I didn't have any feel for, because I wasn't I was barely recruited. So I have like, I was like, I sent out a DVD. I got a call every couple of Sundays. I was like, all right, like, I guess that's recruiting. I mean, I'm sure people are getting recruited more than that, but I don't know what that looks like. I'm not getting the, I'm not getting the star treatment. So, so that was the most eye-opening thing, was like that process and how, how detailed and like thorough all of that was really eye-opening.
Yeah, I could see that, where again, especially when you're talking about at the Division III level, right? I think the thing that a lot of people don't realize is, you can recruit all year round, but you can recruit all year round, right? So there's the opportunity to do that all year round is great. And yet the opportunity to do that all year round means that you're constantly on as a Division III coach, and it never ends. I think that's the one thing that I don't even know if I fully grasped that until, so my son is a sophomore at Ohio Wesleyan, and you just realize that, you see the recruiting process that he went through, and then, they get to school, and then you're talking to them, and he's like, coach had to, as soon as practice was over, he was driving, 2 hours to go to this high school game, or he's got to get to this next AAU tournament, and just all the things that, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but, clearly it's just, you're coaching the current iteration of your team, and yet you still have to be spending all that time and creativity and energy to be able to work on that next class that's coming in, and keeping your program sustained no matter what level you're at. But Division III is unique just because of, again, the opportunity that you can be doing it all the time, which sort of necessitates that you are, because if you're not, somebody else is going to be doing it. So I can definitely relate to that idea of just the recruiting being more than what you might have anticipated.
Yeah.
Right. So the next stop after Rhodes, you end up going back to your high school. So clearly that was maybe the path that you thought you were going to take initially coming out of school before you had the opportunity at Rhodes. So just talk to me about that transition back to high school, how, why, and then what the experience was like at the high school level, and then we'll transition back to, going back to Rhodes. So just walk me through the process of going from being at Rhodes to going back to Fenwick and doing in the role that you were at there.
Yeah. I kind of, like you just mentioned, I was kind of going through because I went from part-time my first year at Rhodes, and then I got moved up to the full-time position my second year, which was awesome. It was a great opportunity. And then I kind of got we didn't have a great year, and I think my confidence got hit a little bit, and I still didn't know exactly like what I wanted to pursue. I kind of fell in that mindset of like, I got to have it all figured. Like, do I want to be a college coach? Like, do I want to, can I get to that point, or do I think I can get to that point of being a college head coach? And really, at the time, I was like, I'm not really confident, like in that I can do that. And and it was unique, like, and being at your alma mater, and like, you have a little bit, I mean, we had kind of an up and down season, but you're like, man, like, I didn't feel like I helped the guys. And I was like, how can I, like, do I need to go learn? I'd been at one place for now, 6 straight years, and with our playing included, is like, and high school and training was still on my mind. And so I was like, maybe I need to be in a different environment and like learn some new stuff, and then kind of go from there. So an opportunity came up late in the summer, and at my high school, it was be a community relations coordinator. Eventually it was an athletic coordinator. So I was working in the athletic department, and then to be the head sophomore coach, and then help out and be an assistant on varsity. And so I accepted that position. I moved back home. And it was a really great, learning experience. And it was challenging in like a bunch of different ways. Our varsity program had an awesome year that first year, went downstate. So it was like, came into a really good situation there. And Rick Malnati was the head coach at the time. And he had been, a legendary head coach at New Trier, and then was on Porter Mosier's staff at Loyola before coming to Fenwick, and he was a lot different. Like, he was a lot different than Mike, and in a lot of great way. Like, it was just unique to have a different perspective, and be around somebody like Rick. And so he was like, at Rhodes, we were very like system oriented. We were like, hey, we were pack line, and we were ball screen continuity, and we were going to be great at both those things. And that's like, we were like full bore on that. And then in high school, it's like you got to figure out ways to, there's just like you got to figure out ways to win in a multitude of different ways. Like, you're like, hey, man to man's not working this round. Like, we're zone, like, we're going to switch it up, and we're going to, triangle and two. Like, we would never think of doing a triangle and 2 or, 1-3-1 or anything like that. We're like, no, we're going to be better at man-to-man defense than they are at offense. And that's what we're going to live and die by. And so, like, just being in a different system and different environment like that was like, it gets your wheels turning as a coach. Like, oh man, this is a lot of new stuff that I didn't think about. And so learning from them. And then, I mean, the most valuable experience is just having to be a head coach at the sophomore level. And first year was just like, I had a great, he was the assistant on varsity when I played there, Denny Zelasco. And so I had him, he came out of retirement for me to be my assistant. So he had just a plethora of experience, and was so cool to have him, as my right hand man, and kind of like just teach me the ropes of how to be, how to practice plan, how to how to run a practice, what drills like make sense for this group and what we're trying to do, and just developing that process, and so that was, and really you got to find your voice. Like you gotta in that first year you don't really know what your voice is. You want to be respected, and you want to be credible, and you get caught up in a lot of a lot of different stuff as a first year head coach. You just want to, you don't want to make mistakes. And then, and it was really like second year, it's like, you settle in and you figure out what, your identity and what you care about, what you want to do. Because at first you're trying to pull from everybody, right? You're trying to pull from every clinic that you've been to. You're trying to pull from, the varsity guys. You're trying to pull from, your assistant. You're trying to make everybody happy. And it's like, no, what do you value? And what are you going to emphasize? What are you going to be like, hold the guys accountable for? And if you do those things, you'll figure it out. And so, that second year was really good. I had a great group of kids, and we had so much fun. But I was like, I kind of found, how to be confident in what you want to do. And so, it was great group of people, and I really, really I look back at those notes, and I gotta get with Rick, because he had so many great set plays. But I got his play sheet. It goes with me to every job, and but it was a really, really valuable experience for sure.
Yeah, I think I take two things away from what you said. One is finding your voice is not easy for a young coach. I remember the first time I stepped out on the court as a coach, and I've told this story a couple of times, but I was coaching a JV team and stepped out there and running the first drill. And I remember standing there by myself as the only, I didn't have an assistant coach, obviously, as a JV coach, and watching that first drill and just being like, I just watched like 500 mistakes in 5 minutes of this drill. How am I going to do this? Like, I just, you have no idea. And then you're trying to figure out, like you said, what's important to you, and who are you, and what kind of a coach are you going to be, and how do you impact players? And it's all stuff that takes time to be able to figure out. And then the second thing, and I'm sure that you've reflected on this and will continue to reflect on it as you move throughout your career, but the ability to have spent 2 years as a head coach, which is a role that not many guys who, again, if you start out as a part-time Division III assistant, right? Most often the path is you're just kind of moving up that ladder, that chain of command. And then eventually maybe you get your opportunity to be a head coach at the college level without ever having been a head coach at any level. And then all of a sudden you step in and you're like, wait, I got to decide playing time and substitutions, and I got to figure I got to know when to call timeout, and all the things that you kind of take for granted, right? That you learn as a head coach. So I'm sure that you have reflected and will continue to reflect on how valuable the reps that you got, and there's somebody on the outside could say to you, oh, come on, man, you're coaching a sophomore team. Like, that's nothing like coaching a college team. But the reality is that those reps as a head coach, I'm sure that you continue to look back on those as being extremely valuable. And whenever you do eventually get an opportunity to be a head coach at the college level, if that's what you want to do, I mean, you're going to look back on those 2 years and be like, man, I learned a lot that helped me to be at least semi-prepared for, for eventual head coaching job at a different level. And I'm sure that's how you're looking at it, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and it's mainly mistakes. Like you think about dealing with like in high school, that was the biggest culture shock. At Rhodes, we didn't deal with parents at all. Like your kids at college, like maybe get a parent email like once, but nothing. Rarely. In high school, they're there, man. Like they're there. They're calling you. They got no problem coming up to you. And like I don't know at the time I'm 24. I'm like I don't even like. I don't know how to handle the situation and just having and really like having confidence and comfortable like, all right, I dealt like with those scenarios. There's not much that are tougher than that. And then just being, I like you just having a voice and just, I think the things that I draw from it, and it's something that I've also learned from Coach Yuckham at WashU is like I'll always if I become a head coach, I will seek out a older, wiser assistant, and that's what we had. Steve Wilcutt on our staff, and then Coach had Chief at Oshkosh, and having Zelasco on my our 2-man staff with sophomores. It was like having somebody that will shoot you straight, that's been through every basketball scenario you can think of, and can help you think outside the box. Because once now you go through that head coaching experience and you go into whatever your next head coaching experience. Like, I'm going to know what I want to do. I'm going to be like, yeah, I want to do this, this, and this. And then you need somebody to be right there saying, hey, buddy, I don't know if we can do that with this crew. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's like, you got to think about some other stuff, and like stuff that you get tunnel vision, like with, you're like, hey, I got this plan, and, however, I've got plenty of years under my belt at this point. That's what you're thinking. And, but having the right people around you and having somebody like that, like that's one thing that that's been reinforced then and continues to be. And, but yeah, your spot. I mean, you get very few, and like I coached we had a couple JV games this past year at WashU, and even just getting back into like those games, I was like, man, I haven't done this in a while. Like, when do I call a timeout?
Yeah.
Like, man, I got to get the board. I guess I can use the board on this one. But yeah, it's so true. And I would even say I've considered, the last couple years of even like seeking out local like AAU opportunities, just to get those, just to keep working that muscle. It's like anything else. Like, you stop using that muscle, it's gonna be gone. So yeah.
It's definitely culture shock. I was a varsity assistant for, I think, 13 years, where, again, I wasn't making any of those in-game decisions. I'm sitting on the bench. I'm keeping track of fouls. I'm throwing suggestions out. I'm doing whatever. And then one year, our JV coach left to take another job, and I ended up taking over the JV team and, again, making decisions and being a head coach. And I was like, man, it's been like 11 years since I did any of this stuff during a game. And I'm like, I remember like for a game or two being completely overwhelmed, like forgetting that I had to sub guys out and that I had a bench, and what am I doing during time? During timeouts, I'm coming up with I got like 47 things I'm trying to say to the team, and you just forget all the little things that it takes to be a head coach and be in control of all the decisions that you make, and slowing yourself down so that you can control it. Because when you're an assistant, you can be sitting there on the bench and you come up with your one great point and throw that in at a timeout, or yell it up to your head coach as they're standing in front of you. But when you're the guy that has to make those decisions, those reps are definitely different. And I know that they're going to continue to be valuable for you for the rest of your career. Talk a little bit about the decision then after the experience at Fenwick. So now you've had the college experience, you've had the high school experience that you kind of thought was maybe going to be your original career path, and you make the decision, go back to Rhodes, back to college basketball, and then eventually you're going to end up at WashU. So just tell me about the decision to go back and follow the college coaching career path as opposed to staying on the high school path.
Yeah. So I kind of hit a point there at Fenwick where I was also working part-time at M14 Hoops. So I was doing the training thing as well. And I found myself, I missed Division III basketball. Like that was like the main driving force was, I'd be on d3hoops.com. I went from not knowing anything about Division III basketball to just being an absolute junkie. And so, and just staying up to date with Rhodes, obviously, and checking in on those guys and knowing, watching their games and tracking box scores, but really just like the entire sport in general. I just kept finding myself like going back and that's where my focus was. And then that played in that was like the idea of like you mentioned before, of basketball being your full-time job and kind of getting the realization of like, I had a really great setup, like being at like, that is, you're focused on your team in some way, shape or form. It's like not always on the court, but it's recruiting, it's, the admin stuff, but it's all, you have your guys are there to go to school and to hoop and not like nothing else. And then you're there to set them up for success and and pour everything you got into that team, that season, that program. So, so I was kind of weighing both, like, of what to do next. If it was, M14, if there was an opportunity there to be on the basketball side, and that's, all basketball all the time. But I really just, I couldn't see myself not being a part of a team. It's like, I really, and not, those conference games, like those, like there's, those, they had it, they got to your hooks in them. Yeah. They had their hooks in me. And so, I was applying, like I applied for some assistant jobs and see if anything, kind of developed. And then my Coach George was at Rhodes, and then he got the Colorado Mesa job, and so he was going out there, and then Tyler Papadinas got the Rhodes head coaching job, and I applied for it. I reached out to Tyler and I said, "Hey, I'm an alum. I used to coach there. I'm looking to get back into it and would love an opportunity." And he, I got an interview. I went down there and then he gave me the opportunity to come back. And so I went back in 2018 and was there for 6 years. So got back to the place I started, which is, which was great. And it was really just fortunate to get back in it, because that's what one thing Mike always told us, like, it's harder to, once you get out, it's harder to get back in. And, probably, me being young and dumb, I was like, I can figure it out. Like,
I can do it. Yeah. In, right? It'll work out.
And it'll happen to me. Right. And I was lucky enough that it did, but I know it's, doesn't happen that way for everybody. So
what did you take from that second experience, those 6 years as an assistant at Rhodes, that now you've taken with you to WashU? What's something that you learned in that second stint that has made you a better assistant at WashU?
Yeah. So it was looking back on it, it was I worked for 3 different head coaches at Rhodes, and that was like, at the time, it's very challenging at the time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like, so I worked for, Mike was I was all like, again, I love Mike DeGeorge. I'm the biggest Mike DeGeorge fan in the world. And he's my coach. He gave me an opportunity. Like, I didn't think I was going to play college basketball. So like, I was like, just, 100% all in. And so as a coach, I'm like, I'm all like, whatever Mike says, like he could tell us to do whatever. I'm like, we're doing that. And so that, and then to come back and then I worked for Tyler and I worked for Zoe Goodson the last 4 years I was there. And all three extremely different head coaches, which, and for me, it was challenging because I didn't know, I came back working for one head coach and then that situation doesn't work out. I don't know if I'm going to be retained on staff when they bring in the new guy, eventually Zoe, but I don't know what's going to happen there in that position. So there was a lot of a lot of career experience and situations that I take going into, especially like interviewing for WashU and then, just kind of talking about my career is like, I feel like I'm pretty adaptable. Like that's where I learned is like, how can I, fit in with each of these guys, at the same place. Like, and so, and I really learned, how to, I learned at the end of it all, like kind of how to humble myself and help a head coach, I think. Yeah. And so like being at your alma mater, like, and I've seen Rhodes, I've been, my first year coaching or being the assistant at Rhodes, we won 20 games. We won the conference. We hosted the conference tournament. We had a great year. And I've been an assistant coach on team. We were 5-21. Like, and so seeing both ends of the spectrum and kind of, being able, and really with Zoe, like my challenge was like, how can I like help, how can I best serve like the head coach, which I don't think like, I don't know if I had, necessarily that mindset, or I don't think you're thinking about how to help the head coach. You're just like, I think I got to do my job and I got to, make sure that, I'm getting things done and that, that the guys, like me and like whatever else. And then, but I really learned how to use like my assistant coaching voice with both Coach Papadinas and Coach Goodson, and that, like with Coach Papadinas, it was like he gave me a lot of autonomy. Like, so when I was able to, say, suggest certain things and drills or what we should do offensively or defensively, I mean, he really, gave me confidence by just either implementing those things or, taking those things into consideration. And which was great. And it was a great learning curve because I got to figure out like what worked and what didn't. Like I got to really evaluate, hey, I suggested this and it didn't go so well. Like, and like, how can it, how can I change that moving forward? Like, what were the things? Like, you can't just suggest something and then like, you really got to have a plan of how to execute it. And I didn't, early on, I was like, I didn't really have a well thought off plan. And then with Coach Goodson, he was coming from the Division I level. And so like my place, like he really leaned on me, I think for, just figuring out the Division III landscape, like figuring out roads, like, I had institutional knowledge. And so like voicing those things in the right way, like not being a know-it-all and not being like well, hey, I know about this place. Like, this is what we should be doing. It's like, how can you constructively, work with somebody and get this thing moving in a good direction or give, good guidance. And ultimately my job and assistant's jobs are to lay out the options, and your head coach should want your opinion, but it's like, just lay out the options and then be able to deliver like, hey, I think this is the best one. And then leave it at that. Like, you got to put your ego to the side. You got to get out of your feelings. Like, that's something that, I feel I've had to work on a lot. Like, it's like, it's not like don't be offended. Like, just see and take your idea. Like that. It's again, it's that like, and then now looking back in the high school, it's just like it is stressful when it comes down to you and you feel that pressure. And so learning that at the college level and learning that with, like multiple head coaches is, been great for my growth and helped put me in a position like Joe gave me a lot of responsibilities with our offense. And I look back on my experiences with Coach Papadinas and as a sophomore coach, was like, okay, like when I had control of, the defense, it didn't go well. Like, and like, why didn't it go? Okay. So with the offense, we got to have you got to be able to present this, and you got to be able to, have a plan and have, the why, and like sell, like I had to sell it to coach, and I had to, really, be confident and knowledgeable and then go out and try and execute it. And so, and it was just really, cool to, see how different people do different things. And, get like, I think we all know, like you get into a box of like, this is the way it's always been done. And then to like looking back on it, see like, hey, like, I never would have like with Coach Goodson, like big fundraiser, like gets the guys like tons of gear and like just all those like kind of extra things. And, I'm like a classic, like Midwestern guy. I'm like, yeah, you don't need that stuff. And like,
a t-shirt, right? Just get them a t-shirt, like, they're good.
Yeah. and so I'm like, but like, there's value to that. Like there is guy, like that's important. Like these guys are they're playing college sports. Like they are doing, and just like being at a place like Rhodes, being at a place like WashU, like they're doing hard things on and off the court. And like they have earned, they've earned the opportunity for nice things, and it's a big deal. It's a big, like I don't care. Every level of college basketball is a big deal. And so the more that we can give our guys that feeling and they feel like, hey, more than just the people, we don't need more than the people in this room to care. But it is nice sometimes to know that, more than the people in this room care. And so that was something that was that I kind of learned throughout that process too, was just those other things that, you don't think about as assistant coach. Like you're just like, hey, what's practice look like? Let's get scout ready and let's go compete, and just having an appreciation for how much more goes on with our head coaches, and how those things matter as well. That's gonna be a big part of, my continued growth, and hopefully one day when I'm sitting in that chair, I can remember those things and learn and have a good experiences in that position. So
there's so many different ways. I think what you touched on that's so important is that when you work with 4 different coaches and you work in different programs, what you end up seeing, right, is that there's different ways to play winning basketball. You can, we could do it this way, we could do it that way. And sometimes if you get stuck in your mentality of thinking like, hey, this is the only way to do it, you realize that, look, how many schools across the country at all levels of college basketball are being coached exactly the same way? To answer that question is probably 0, right? Everybody brings something slightly different to the table, from a culture, from an X's and O's, everything about it. And so the exposure that you get to different people then allows you to pick and choose, as you say, hey, I really like this, or man, I don't know about that. That's not going to be for me when I end up being a head coach. but the more people that you have an opportunity to work for and work under and see how they operate and what they do and how they do it, just builds your knowledge base of what you're pulling together that eventually allows you to find your voice, figure out who you are as a coach. And then eventually when you have your program, then you'll be able to take all those pieces and parts that you've collected along the way and turn them into what Patrick McGrail believes, right? And who he is as a coach. And you'll have taken bits and pieces of all these guys that you've had an opportunity to work for. Tell me a little bit about the role at WashU and just kind of how you guys delegate who does what and just how your staff is organized.
Yeah. So last year we had Coach Yuck and myself, and then Coach Wilcutt and then Coach Stecklin. And so we delegated in a way that Coach Yuckham is defensive guy, like defensive genius, like all in on that, like on that side of the ball. So when we, from a day-to-day basis, like he's really locked in with our defense. With, you know, when we get to scouting, it's kind of dependent on who's taking that, but that's where, you know, he really hones in on, and he allowed me right away. I mean, I came in, you know, to obviously the extremely well-established program and a team that was in the Sweet 16 the year before I got there. And so I was just trying to kind of figure out the lay of the land and
right.
And just you know, taking on
what, trying not to get in the way,
exactly.
Right? Don't let me be the guy that messes this up.
No, that was exactly what I was doing. I was like, I'm making sure that I don't mess up any food orders, any itineraries. Like,
right.
I'm gonna keep things the status quo. You guys, the basketball stuff's been fine well before I was here, so you guys got that. But Coach Yuckham was great. Like the offensive side of the ball was something that that I started to get into more at Rhodes, my last 2 years at Rhodes. And so Coach knew that, you know, as I was coming in. And so he really let me, you know, we obviously collaborated on what they were doing the year before and how like his vision of what it would be like moving forward. But he really let me come in with, you know, my idea. He loves fresh ideas from everybody and anybody. And so like him, that genuine like conversation of, hey, what have you done in the past? What did you like? Like we really connected there, and he let me, you know, kind of have ownership over, you know, the offensive side of the ball from just like a film standpoint. Like when we're, you know, in our practice film sessions, like he'll show his defensive correction clips and I'll show offensive ones. And so that's kind of how the sort of day-to-day practice stuff is delegated. And, you know, when we get to practice, you know, he'll have me do, you know, the offensive kind of breakdown things. And right now we're in our 8 contact days. So, you know, we both kind of collab on our small group sessions, but he really lets me, be creative with those, and those are more offensive focused. So, we lets me kind of plan those out and have those ready, and which has been great. And then we get into the season, like we play Friday, Sundays, you know, he takes that Friday scout and he's got Coach Willie with him. And then last year myself and Jake, our other assistant, we had the Sunday scouts. So, but in the non-con, we just depended on how the schedule sort of works out. It's either all 4 of us. If it's, you know, if we don't have like that 2 games in a weekend, it's like all 4 of us are locked in on one team and given our notes and our thoughts. And that would be typically one where like I'd watch how to attack them from an offensive standpoint, and Coach is locked in on how to guard them. But then we had a shift. So Jake Stecklin, he took a high school girls head coaching job. So we're down to 3 this year, and so we're working through that. Jake did a lot of our shot quality evaluation, so I've been doing those in this segment of our season, and then we're lucky enough to we got a great group of, we call them APPs, all-purpose personnel, but they're essentially managers, student managers, and they do a lot of statting for us. They're doing live statting in practice for us right now, and but yeah, that's kind of the breakdown of our staff. And then Coach and I are the only full-time assistants, and Coach Willie he's a legendary high school head coach here in St. Louis for a long time. So he's still got a job, but he's basically semi-retired. I give him crap about that. But so we're out, Coach and I are, we're out recruiting and doing all that good stuff in, spring, summers, and yeah, so that's sort of the breakdown of us.
Tell us a little bit about the UAA for people who aren't familiar with the league that you guys play in, because it's pretty unique in terms of the major cities that the schools are located in and the way you guys have the schedule and the travel. Just talk briefly about just what that experience was like for you going through that last year.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I was anticipating it to be, like a sort of like built it up as like this huge challenge, but we're flying, and we're right. We're not flying charter, but we're flying commercial, and but we're going. It's a whirlwind of a weekend. It's so competitive, and it's like, and people were telling me, and I actually played with the previous assistant, Luke Collins, at Rhodes. So he was kind of prepping me on. He's like, every weekend, every game feels like a tournament game. And I'm like, well, I never played in a tournament, so I don't know what that feels like yet. So for me, it was a whirlwind. But it's so cool. Like, it is just like, it's going to, I'd never been in New York before. And so that was my first time there. Not that I got to experience the city, but it was just I'm here in New York. But
you're in New York. You're theoretically in New York, right?
Yeah, I'm in there. Yeah, there's Times Square's nearby, but
yeah, right.
But yeah, it's just like looking back on those weekends. You get home on Monday, or you get home on Sunday, but you get there Monday, you wake up and you feel like you just played. I didn't play a minute, right. And but you look at the mileage that you covered, and it's pretty surreal. But I mean, just the competitiveness of the elite, the coaching, the level of player, the talent level is so. And that was coming into our first practices at WashU. I was like, man, I haven't been around this level of talent. No offense to anybody, but it's just right. it's just very, and the size of our guys, how big, and skilled they are. And then you go and you play, obviously NYU was incredible, and Emory, and Chicago, everybody going against, they're no different. We're all competing for the same kids in recruiting, and then you see them up close and personal, and it is it's a physical, and it's just really impressive basketball. And so that was fun. It was really fast for me, but once things started to once we got halfway through conference play, I was like, okay, I feel I'm seeing the game. It's not just blowing by me right now.
Right. Yeah.
But no, it's really, it's just really cool to go up against teams that have that number next to their name.
For sure.
Just,
absolutely.
And like you mentioned, there's a different energy from the fans, from the coaches, from the players of it's big time basketball. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's that's for sure.
very unique league in terms of the setup and the geography and the ability to fly and the Friday, Sunday games and everything that goes along with that. It's, again, for anybody who hasn't checked it out and doesn't know that much about D3 basketball, starting in the UAA is not a bad place to start if you want to check out some really high quality Division III basketball. So, all right, well, Patrick, we're coming up on an hour and a half, so I want to ask you a final 2-part question. So part one is, when you look ahead over the next year or two, what do you see as being your biggest challenge? And then the second part of the question, when you think about what you get to do every day as a college basketball coach, what brings you the most joy? So your biggest challenge first, and then your biggest joy.
My biggest challenge in the next 2 years. My mind immediately went to our team of,
Right, of course. Yeah, exactly. That's where I expected it to go.
So for our team, it's really, our biggest challenge is really exciting I think from a coaching standpoint. I mean, we graduated Hayden Doyle and Drake Kinsvader. We were Hayden's bona fide All-American and All-Conference, for 4 years, and was a staple for us. And then Drake was, essentially, like, he was an All-American talent, and did so many intangible things, and was just an extreme. I mean, I think he had the best performance I ever saw live. Was in the Elite Eight against La Crosse, and like 32 and 11, and was just incredible. And so, they're our 2 leading scorers, and now, like, we return a lot of guys that are just different than those guys. Like, we have a ton of talent, and the fun thing is, like, especially from an offensive standpoint, like, you lose your top 2 leading scorers, your first thing is like, how do we make up that productivity? And that's the exciting thing for us right now, is like, I think we get to do it in a way that's different than we had to do it before. And what is that? And we're like working through it right now. And we got, Coach and I just got back at 2 a.m. yesterday I did a whole tour of college practices in the Memphis area this weekend, and getting new ideas and pulling from teams. And he went to Mizzou and Illinois and Purdue, and we came together today, and it's like, how can we help our group? Like, we have so many great pieces. How can we help this group be successful as soon as possible? So that's the biggest challenge of in the next year, is like, what does our offense look like to give our group the best chance to make a run like we did last year? And then, sorry, I forgot what your second question. Oh, what's the
biggest joy?
Biggest joy. The biggest joy. Our guys. Our guys are the best. Like, and I know everybody probably says that, but our, like, the people that we have, and this would be my biggest advice to, like, any, like, assistant coaches out there, is, I think we all get caught up in the rat race of trying to get a job that's going to set you up for the next job, and you're not thinking about anything else than that. And it's like, find really good people, and find really good people that are good at what they do, or that are about the right stuff, and just hang on to them, like, and stay with them, because you'll figure it out. Like, you got to be around really great people, and that's and like our staff at WashU and our player, like, that just feeds in. Like, it starts with Coach Yuckham, and then it feeds into who he hires and who he recruits, and it just permeates throughout our whole program. And I really like the energy of our group. Like, there's such impressive people, and like, one thing that I'm like learning more this year is, like, I think the word friend is kind of taboo in coaching. Is like, oh, well, he wants to be friends with his players. And we're like, and I think that's like, I think that might be misguided. Like, I think friend is a extremely, like, valuable and heavy word, right? Like, if I'm friends with you, like, we love each other, we're loyal to each other, we are and I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to confront you when you're, doing stuff wrong, or when you're, not living up to your potential. And then I'm going to be with you in the hard times and the great times. And so like, I truly, like, this group that I'm with and is like, they're my friends. And like, and that brings me a lot of joy. And it's just, I get so, like, I ran into a couple guys like walking into work today, and I was like, that was the best part of my day. Like you don't see your guy, you get caught up, you get in the office, you're watching film, you're doing all the other stuff, and you might go a day without seeing your guys, and like the random run-ins and, see them at practice or wherever it may be is the best. So
feel you, man. I can hear it in your voice that the connection that you have with your players and the impact that you get to have because of that connection. There's nothing better than that. It really makes a huge difference. All right. Before we get out, I want to give you a chance to share. How can people connect with you, find out more about you, your program? Just go ahead and share email, website, whatever you got, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. My email is it's McGrail, my last name, McGrail, at WUSTL, it's WUSTL.edu. So any coaches, anybody that wants to reach out, pick my brain, say that I was bad on a podcast, I'll take some criticism, or wants to come to a practice, or if you're stopping by for one of our games, we'd love to have you, love to connect. And yeah, again, I mentioned I was going to practices this weekend, so would love to anybody that wants to come see what we do. We would be more than happy to host that. And I'm on Twitter, Twitter, Instagram, PT McGrail 1313. Our WashU account, WashU, we're WashU MBB on Twitter and Instagram. You can stay up to date with all the stuff we got going on, from scheduling to what our guys are up to, and what's going on with our program there. So, but yeah, and WashU Bears, WashUBears.com for all things WashU. We got unbelievable teams. I think all of our fall sports teams are in the top 10, which is, just being around greatness all the time is pretty sweet. So check out all 19 of our sports are doing great things. So, but yeah,
there you go. Thank you for jumping on with us tonight. Really appreciate it. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks. Your first impression is everything when applying for a new coaching job. A professional coaching portfolio is the tool that highlights your coaching achievements and philosophies, and most of all, helps separate you and your abilities from the other applicants. The Coaching Portfolio Guide is an instructional, membership-based website that helps you develop a personalized portfolio. Each section of the Portfolio Guide provides detailed instructions on how to organize your portfolio in a professional manner. The guide also provides sample documents for each section of your portfolio that you can copy, modify, and add to your personal portfolio. As a Hoopheads Pod listener, you can get your Coaching Portfolio Guide for just $25. Visit coachingportfolioguide.com/hoopheads to learn more.
Thanks for listening to the Hoopheads Podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.